paper review guest. Mr. Igho Akeregha is the Abuja Bureau Chief of this Nigerian newspaper and also a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. You're welcome to our studios this morning.
Good morning.
Well, just before we start, before we go into the papers directly, we had some very unfortunate news yesterday about terrorists attacking the rail line between Abuja and Kaduna, but this time it happened somewhere in Kaduna, between Katanji and another particular spot. And we understand that even though details are still hazy, the information we have this morning is that the evacuation of passengers have now been completed. We also have that so far 7 corpses have been recovered. There's also expectation that the Railway Commission will be providing a complete manifest of the passengers who were on that rail line yesterday. So a totally unfortunate incident which happened last night. But as we speak, the pictures are still unclear of what truly transpired, apart from the fact that we know that terrorists did bomb parts of the rail track, which it would seem sent the train off course. And we understand that people came out of the train, took refuge in the bushes. There were also speculations that a number of people were kidnapped. But what we understand is that as of this morning, there's going to be a security meeting in Kaduna, and afterwards the press will be briefed. But as we get the information on this developing story, because it is a developing story, we'll be bringing them to you here on Sunrise Daily, and of course throughout the day here on Channels Television. So we ask you to stay tuned. But Mr. Akeregha, this is what we have been dished out just from last night till this morning. And I think leadership has the story on its front page. So we'll start with leadership this morning. And look at this: terrorist bomb Kaduna rail tracks, 970 passengers stranded. Attackers over 50 in numbers. That's according to victims. And they're also, just what we said earlier, travelers feared kidnapped. So it's not clear what the story, what the motive was. But if it was to instill terror, it certainly did work. I'm going to read also a few explainers at the bottom they have here. They said, terrorist bomb Kaduna rail tracks, leaving 970 passengers stranded. Attack took place at Regina area of Kaduna State, which is known for bandit attacks and kidnappings. This is the second time that terrorists will be attacking the Abuja-Kaduna train and blowing up the tracks. The first attack was in November 2021. The attack is coming 2 days after a group of terrorists attacked the Kaduna airport and prevented the aircraft from taking off. Security operatives comprising the military, police, and DSS intervened to ensure the safety of passengers. So this is what we have. We also have an update here on Channels Television that 7 bodies have now been recovered as a result of this particular attack. What do we make of this, constant, it will now seem now, bombardment of the transport infrastructure in Kaduna? What exactly are the terrorists trying to achieve?
Well, for me, this morning, I think most of the papers reported. In the newsroom yesterday, when the news broke, I was personally disturbed, and we were also trying to scamper for what really happened. We're trying to put the pieces together. Now, as you said, that coach is it carries about 1,100 passengers. 970 passengers were in the train yesterday. That's around Regina. Now, basically, it simply underscores the very deteriorated security situation in the country. It's not the first time. November last year it happened. The airport was attacked, I think, about 2 weeks ago or so.
2 days ago?
Sorry, 2 days ago, And then you have a large concentration of military infrastructure in Kaduna State. You have the Air Force training school. You have the Nigerian Army depot in Zaria, and all of that, all those military infrastructures. Don't also forget, even the NDA itself was attacked.
It was.
The Nigerian Defense Academy was attacked. So what exactly is going on in Kaduna that the federal government cannot deal with? That is just one state. Yes, we know Zamfara, Katsina, Niger State, all of that has banditry attack. What is going on? Why are they targeting the Nigerian Railway Corporation? Because, of course, the Abuja-Kaduna road is almost impassable. It's passable, but it's a terrorist enclave. If you are going through that route, your heart is always in your mouth. Each time I have to travel through that route, I'm always very, very worried. And now we go by train, and now the train is coming under a second attack. Now, what that tells me is that we've not been able to get it right. And one of the cardinal promises of Mr. President was to fix the security situation. The Kaduna State Governor himself, Malam Nasri El-Rufai, has said that the administration was not going to negotiate with terrorists, and the terrorists vowed that they were going to make the state ungovernable. Could that be the reason why they are concentrating so much attack on Kaduna State? Now, if that is the situation, why is the federal government unable to deploy adequate security resources and infrastructure to Kaduna State to once and for all deal with the situation? Well, why are we unable to deploy drones, for example? The Nigerian Railway should be able to afford drones, you know, to go ahead of the train, do rail track surveillance by the drone, and then have a feedback mechanism such that when the train takes off, it's going to be seamless, right? But all of that is simply just also underscores the fact that as a nation, we are not able to get anything right. It's really, really unfortunate.
Well, for the security operatives, they will say that, you know, they have to be right all of the time, that the terrorists only need to be right once, and then it will seem that it spoils everything else that they have been doing. Because they will claim, I mean, that after this attack, I know that they were the first attack in November, there were strong assurances that were given to Nigerians that it was safe to go back. I do know that when I was going to travel to Kaduna again, I had a bit of fear in my heart, but, you know, when you receive that sort of reassurance that, oh, it's been taken care of and we have deployed security. I think only recently the House of Reps said they were going to inspect the fences which were put up along the Abuja-Kaduna rail track. So it would seem that there had been some development, but it does look like that is certainly not sufficient. So what do we say to the defense of the security agencies who say that, oh, we only have to, the terrorists only need to be right once? And, you know, no matter how many times we have been right in terms of warding them off or in terms of, you know, being able to prevent these attacks, it will seem that it counts for nothing.
Well, for me, I do not think there's any excuse by the security agencies to say terrorists can only be right once. We get it right all the time. Look at the number of Nigerians that have been slaughtered in Kaduna State alone in the last 7 years. It's appalling that in a country where the government itself said they were going to just take up 3 issues: economy, security, and corruption. And you just can't place your hand on anything that the government has been able to do right. For the security agencies, for me, I just think they're overwhelmed. There's no excuse at all. Now, lives have been lost. How do you account for those lives? Even if it's one person that was killed, somebody who paid to travel from one point to the other, paid to the federal government because Nigerian Railway is owned by the federal government, and then the government is unable to secure the lives of that citizen. The constitution is also very clear that the purpose of government is for the security and welfare of citizens. So if the government can't guarantee the security of citizens, for me, it's worrisome. And then you see the political elites jostling for 2023. It doesn't appear as if they are so keen on dealing with the issues. We still have a long way to 2023. And, well, I expect to see what the government will say this morning.
Do you
particularly think that the federal government. This also underscores the urgent need for state police, because we just cannot run a central security system and expect that we are going to get it right. It's becoming very clear. It's visible before all of us now that we just cannot deal with the situation.
Do you think that this is going to force attention back to the issue of governance, the issues that really truly matter to the Nigerian people? Because as you rightly pointed out, politics is all in the air right now, and it's all about politics. I don't know how optimistic you are that this will bring attention back to the fact that we still have a lot of challenges to handle.
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen the political class talking about grabbing power or, you know, securing power in 2023, but nobody has been able to answer the questions how you are going to deal with these issues. Nigerians are very concerned about unemployment, about excruciating poverty. They are concerned about security, you know, and we expect that when the debates begin, that's if there will be debates, because what we see now is consensus, what the legendary fella Nicolas Pokuti calls a paddy-paddy arrangement, where people just sit down and say, oh, you concede this to me, And then, of course, when you concede to me, I get in there, I'll be able to then also give you certain privileges. That has excluded the inclusivity of the political system. Nobody's talking about it. It has excluded the youth, excluded the women, excluded Nigerians. It's just the ruling elite that is agreeing amongst themselves how they want to share power. That cannot happen in 2023. That I'm very sure. Happily, the media is focusing on all of these issues. The central issues to determine the 2023 elections will be issues of primarily security. Because without security, there can be investment, there can be employment, the poverty is going to rise, people can't go to their farms. A whole lot of issues are tied around security. So we want to see presidential candidates, governorship candidates, senators and all that, who will be able to tell their constituents or Nigerians that this is the solution they have to dealing with the issues. But of course, last night, what has happened last night is just a sad reminder that as a country, it's still a teething problem. We're unable to get it right. President Buhari, who himself is a retired general, who made this firm promise to Nigerians, and that was why former President Goodluck Jonathan, was voted out of office.
Well,
Buhari hasn't gotten it right, and the current administration has not gotten it right. It's sad. They should be apologizing to the families, to Nigerians this morning. And going forward, this must stop. That is the truth. You just have to stop. We can't continue on this track.
I'm just going to read out a few other headlines on it, and then I'll throw it to Lagos. Look at the other stories that are here. Politics, of course, is also on the front page. PDP presidential race not for 70-year-olds. That's attributed to Otom. You also see this National Convention PDP suit against APC act of desperation. That's according to the federal government. Nigeria Air applies for operational license, notifies NCAA. That's also on the front page of the paper. And 2023, I want to help Buhari finish strong, from Emefiele, perhaps in question to whether or not he wants to run for president. And 12 coups in Africa in 5 years, unacceptable. That's from Vice President Oshibajo and others. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Incidentally, the Nigerian Tribune has the same story on its front page. Terrorists blow up Abuja-Kaduna rail track, surround train, fire shots. Well, that's on the front page. And hopefully our correspondent in Kaduna, Chimeze Inyocha, will be giving us some updates on the terrorist attack in due course, and we may have a little conversation around that as well. So much has been said already. Below the page also you see something related. Bandits kill 15 villagers in fresh Kaduna attack. One wonders where all of this is going, and of course, our guest has spoken to this quite some. A number of other stories on the front page. NBA faults National Assembly creation of new law school campuses. That's also on the front page. Stories on page 21. That's the Nigerian Tribune today.
Well, let's turn our attention to Vanguard newspaper. The lead is also in something violent, but not on the Abuja-Kaduna rail. This one is in Imo. You see, hoodlums attack Imo police station with petrol bombs. Injure police officers, open fire on passengers in Enugu, killed 2. Police recover 3 undetonated explosives as Southeast shuts down. Anambra workers, intercity transporters remain adamant, defy Soludo's orders. Traders shun markets and, a host of other riders. Clearly, this is not just a northwest or north central issue. Clearly, we have this as well in the southeast region of the country. And I know Maupe has asked about, paying attention to the issues of governance. Yes, there's a lot of politicking going on, but there's also the issues of governance, the economy, security, and all of that. Of course, that story, terrorist bomb, Abuja-Kaduna rail track, attack 970 passengers, is also on the front page. But, hey, what do you know? Politics will also make its way to the front page. FG attacks PDP, alleges destabilization bid. That's on the back of the APC convention. And I wonder what you make of this back and forth, the PDP, the APC, now federal government, and all of that. Is this, is this the time for all of this? I wonder.
Well, I think the press conference was addressed yesterday by the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, and he was saying that the federal government is concerned that the PDP wants to destabilize the government and actually blame the PDP for the woes that the country is going through. I think Nigerians are tired of this line of thinking by the federal government. For the Minister of Information, it's a bit pathetic that it doesn't appear as if he has a new line of stories to tell Nigerians. This is just a case of a complete failure by the administration. So if the minister is coming up at this point to blame the PDP is not in power. Nigerians didn't vote for the PDP. The APC made promises, and in democracy, the manifesto of the APC is like a covenant between the party and Nigerians. So if you are not able to implement your own manifesto and then you turn around to blame the opposition, I do not think that Nigerians will be happy with that, with that kind of thinking. So going forward, I don't think anybody is taking that seriously at this point. Nigerians are ready to interrogate the political performance, the deliverables by the ruling All Progressives Congress. Hopefully, we hope that when electioneering begin proper, the issues will be placed in their proper perspective. But I think Nigerians are wiser for it now. They are better for it. They are going to interrogate the PDP, interrogate the APC going forward, so that we can pick the best candidates. We just cannot continue in this forth and back blame game in 2023 after the elections. We just have to try and get it right as a country and as a people.
Let's look at what Daily Trust has on the front page for you. After APC convention, confusion as Adamu Kyari holds 2 elective positions. Resign now, that's according to lawyers and PDP. Ruling party, MUM, 1999 constitution, silent. Why we can't act, INEC. So, I don't know if they're working on a rhyme there, but page 5 will give us all the details. But obviously, we saw that a lot of the candidates who were jostling for the position of APC chairmanship were sitting senators. And there were questions as to what was going to happen. Is it possible for someone to be serving in that sort of elective position and also be party chairman? Substantive party chairman, because some people say that they saw May Malabuni, who was governor of Yobe State, and also the caretaker chairman of the APC. But then they will argue that he was caretaker. What about substantive? In a substantive role, it does look like there is no clarity on that.
You see, Nigeria is a queer country. Yeah, I'm sure if you ask them, they will tell you that this is our own brand of homegrown democracy. Homegrown democracy will mean, in defining it, will mean that anything goes. There's nowhere in the world where a sitting senator will emerge as a party chair, and he's still a senator. So he's juggling between going to the APC secretariat on one hand, and then in the evenings at the APC secretariat, in the morning is at the Senate making laws. There's no way that happens. I hope at some point reason will prevail, and then people will just follow what the Constitution says. The Constitution is not silent. It's very clear. If you are elected as a senator, you will be in the National Assembly making laws, deepening the legal and constitutional processes for the country. If you are a party chair, you are designing and fashioning policies and programs for your political party to deepen developmental issues in the country and governance issues. So these are two different, there's no way anybody can cope having to manage the two responsibilities. So for me, it's not something that...
You think he has to let go of one?
Yeah, of course. Of course, once you get elected, once Abdullah Adam got elected as APC chairman, he has to make up his mind. And that is what the Electoral Act also talks about. You know, the argument had been fought and back. If you want to run for any public office or any elective, first resign from your position. You can't be holding on to your position and then coming to run for, compete with others. It's no longer a level playing field. That's just the truth.
I'm going to take 2 more stories. Maybe not 2 more, but you can make of it what you will. Truck drivers more hike in haulage cost over diesel price. Extortion. Yes, we know that the price of diesel has been going through the roof and looks like it's going to affect the cost of transport. But if you take a look at this picture, this is the the picture of the High Court yesterday after Justice Wite asked that, DCP Akeregha be transferred to Kuje Correctional Center. He refused him bail and said that he considers him a flight risk. How do you see the progress on this matter? Are you impressed with how the case is going, or do you think that more speed needs to be applied?
I think I'm satisfied. The judiciary appears to be waking up. Justice Wite yesterday was very clear. Once the argument for bail came up, basically the argument for bail was that Akeregha has some health issues and is entitled to bail and all of that. But looking at the gravity of the offense that we are talking about, so the judge was right in returning Akeregha and the 6 other co-accused to prison. What this tells us is that the law is not meant for some set of people. Everybody should be equal before the law. Akeregha is a super cop. He's currently suspended. Until he's able to discharge himself of all of these allegations, he should be where he's supposed to be, because these are serious issues. When you use your office, you allegedly use your office to compromise criminal matters. You allegedly support criminals to either traffic in cocaine and be involved in international financial crimes and all of that. It's not something that speaks well for the image of Nigeria, particularly for law enforcement, senior law enforcement officer. So the judge, for me, was very right to have denied bail to Akeregha yesterday and then sent him to Kuje prison along with others. For the truck drivers, everybody is now aware that the cost of living is becoming a bit unbearable. As at yesterday when I checked, the price per liter for diesel is almost 700 naira. And this is also an economy that is supposed to be driven by the informal sector, where people rely on diesel, truck drivers moving farm produce or even building materials, petroleum products from one part of the country to the other, relying on diesel. And it's well over the roof now. I do not know. We don't seem to be getting anything right. The last time, the NNPC and the CBN were putting resources together to construct roads. So people, the line of duty has become so messed up and juggled up that as an apex bank, the CBN is getting involved in purchasing fertilizer, doing all kinds of things instead of trying to pursue effective financial regulatory framework for the banking sector. For the NNPC, they're supposed to generally regulate to ensure that seamless supply of petroleum products. They are busy becoming road contractors and constructing roads. So that just tells you how far and how much we have missed our track as a nation.
Well, let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Well, the Nigerian News Direct this morning is next, and it leads with a story on the economy. Despite Ghana's positive growth, FG blames global economic meltdown for Nigeria's decline. Well, we're going to be talking a little more about the economy later on this morning, so I wouldn't want us to overflog that. The story is on page 3 for you to dwell on. However, there is that one right under the picture on the front page, the big picture. Alton raises alarm over imminent blackout in Kogi, 9 other states. We've had blackouts, Mr. Akeregha, and for the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria to be raising the alarm over imminent blackout in 10 states, I'm wondering what the correlation is. What do you think?
Telecom operators rely on power, on electricity, to power their transmitters. So if there's going to be blackout, as they have said, it's going to affect their operations. But it's not new. We've been suffering blackouts in the last 1 month. And if you recall, the federal government was blaming the GENCOs, generation companies, that they are responsible for the blackout. And of course, the generation company talks about a complete collapse of the national grid. So it is all excuses and excuses. My worry, and I'm sure Nigerians that are interrogating the issues this morning, would be why are we running a government of blame instead of a government of solutions? We elect people to provide solutions to solve the problems and not to tell us where the problem lies and their incapacity to deal with the issues. If there is a grid collapse, whose responsibility is it to fix the grid? You know, it is either the power holding companies are telling us that, oh, the water level at Kenji Dam is so low, so it has affected power generation, or certain cables somewhere have been vandalized, so Nigerians can't get electricity, or now it is power grid collapsing. And that just reminds me of the ongoing constitutional review, where the effort is also being made to encourage the states to generate power and use power where it is generated. We can't just, I'm from Delta, power is generated at the Turugu gas plant, for example, and then you feed it to the national grid. And at the end of the day, people who are in far-flung places, who also have capacity to generate power, they are not allowed. So everybody feeds onto the national grid and puts pressure on the system. So if we're a federation, we should learn to do what others are doing. Look at Ukraine, is at war, you still see light there, you still see power. Even when communities are completely destroyed, there's still power, except where they knock off the power infrastructure. Yeah. But in Nigeria, we are not at war and we can't get, we don't have power, we don't have petrol to drive around. Now, diesel too is not affordable. So there's confusion everywhere, and so that is exacerbating the unemployment situation, the poverty level in the country. I just hope that before this administration completes its term next year, that a lot of these things we put in place such that the incoming administration, whether it's APC or PDP, they will be able to take off on a smooth smooth platform. But as it
actually,
is right now,
Mr.
the challenges
Akeregha,
are just increasing. They are growing.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it was the job of NEPA at the time to tell us that there was going to be power outage. Coming from a telecom operator, that's why it was a little worrisome for me. But that's the Nigerian News Director.
You are right. I agree.
Oh, clearly things have changed.
Right.
Well, let's turn our attention to The Guardian now. The Guardian leads with politics. And see Saraki Tambuwal Mohammed push for consensus, unity team. So there's this talk about unity. I recall unity list during the APC convention. Our unity team for the PDP would seem their riders, strings that explain that particular story. The Kaduna Abuja bound train, the attack on it also makes its way to the front page. But take a look at this one. The ASU strike is in 7th week now. NITDA unravels stance with ASU on UTAS, declares 156 out of 687 UTAS test cases failed. So it looks like that's the new twist to that story. I'd like to get your response on that, as well as a point you made earlier about NNPC and CBN partnering on construction of roads. I remember the NNPC talking about taking on, I think, 21 federal roads. That was in October last year with, I think, 621 billion naira. So which one are you referring to? Is the CBN and NNPC partnering on roads as well? Because I recall NNPC, but I don't quite remember the CBN.
Well, no, the point I was making was that the CBN appears to have abandoned its traditional role of ensuring that the governance processes for banks, deepening the processes and the policy issues, that they seem to be abandoning that for other ancillary responsibilities. You know, so I was trying to draw a correlation that while the NNPC was leaving its mandate area to veer into road construction, the CBN itself is also getting involved in other issues that are not within its immediate mandate, you know. But you talked about the ASU strike and how it's affecting the polity. Students, Taraba State University students were blocked the federal highway yesterday. My paper reported that, and nobody is really speaking about the issues. Yes, Tambuwal, Mohammed are not trying to agree on consensus candidate. The political elites are behaving like the traditional ostrich that puts her head in the sand and says everything around her is just well and good. where does that leave Nigerians? I also expect that whilst the political elites are agreeing amongst themselves on who are to take power, trying to agree on some form of consensus, they should also be talking about the issues. Nigerians are very patient people, very pliant people, easy to govern, but you see, the way the country is being pushed, I'm just worried that it wouldn't get to a point where we are no longer talking about political party implosion now. Nobody should push the country to self-implosion itself, because it is when we have a stable polity that politicians can talk about governance and appropriating, aggregating power for themselves. But as it is, there's just too much of debilitating issues affecting the quality of lives of the average Nigerian. So those are issues that must be dealt with instead of people jostling around for power. So it's a bit sickening and worrying. The PDP as an opposition political party, they should be putting on the table alternatives for Nigerians. You know, the issue of consensus, the APC is discussing consensus. I do not think that the PDP should also be focusing so much on consensus. It should be competitive democratic processes such that it will be inclusive. Positions should be thrown open. People should go and compete for those positions on the basis of their own superior arguments and policies, development policies for Nigerians, and not this backdoor arrangement of rub my back, I rub your back. That's not what Nigerians expect to see in 2023. Because if that happens, then we are going to remain where we are. People who have the capacity to transform the landscape, to transform, to provide quality living condition for Nigerians, they may be shut out. It will just be these same people again. They will then rally back to power, and they will go back to complain as citizens. This shouldn't happen in 2023.
Well, I don't know whether there's any backrubbing in this particular story of New Telegraph, but they're talking about the ASU federal government impasse, why religious leaders stepped aside, that's according to CAN, the lecturer's connection, Sultan frets over bloodletting in Nigeria and globally, there's need to deepen political religious collaborations, that's from SGF boss Mustafa. That story is on page 3 of the paper. But this is what we've seen now. Federal government and ASU being at each other's throats for how long now, to the detriment of the education sector. One of the big issues we understand is this IPS versus UTAS. You know, page 3, I'm sure we'll give our readers the details. But what's your own take on this federal government and ASU palaver, or want of a better word?
Sometimes you get confused over the issues. What does ASU want? Is it that as an editor, I look at this their UTAS platform. They want UTAS as a payment platform for university lecturers. And then the federal government says, oh, all public servants should be enrolled with IPPIS. Then, in another hand, the federal government is talking about inadequate funds, you know, to meet the previous agreements with ASU, and that there is a need to review the previous agreement. So, is it the paucity of funds? Is it the funding challenge, or the payment platform that is the issue? So, people need to separate these two issues. For me, I think ASU should try and localize their demand. If it is UTAS, yeah, of course, we have also heard that the UTAS itself is very imperfect, that the software driving the UTAS platform has suffered a lot of test failures. So if that is the case, ASU should just go for the IPPIS. Well, ASU is also saying the IPPIS does not take into cognizance, lecturers, that is professors who go on sabbatical and all of that, and they won't get paid under the IPPS platform, but UTAS takes care of all of those. So these are things that should be worked out. Students in Nigeria, undergraduates, know when they get into university, but you don't know when to come out. As I speak to you, my boy is at home, sitting down, and is unable to graduate. He's getting old, and the same government will tell you that the maximum age to get into the civil service, perhaps 26 years or thereabout. But you also cripple the system such that you keep the students at home, they become overage. If you are getting into the security services, the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, Directional Service Commission, you must be 22 to 26 years. After that, you can't get in. So you get shut out. So who's responsible for these gaps and failures? It's the same government, the same system. You keep students at home, they get overaged, and then by the time they manage to graduate, they can fit into the system. So these are all challenges, a potpourri of challenges that I just think that we need to get certain things right as a country. And there's no reason why universities every year they continue to go on strike, and nobody's talking about it. They are rather discussing politics. Nobody's talking about how to resolve the ASU crisis, return lecturers back to the classroom, get the students back, get them to focus on the academics, because these are the future leaders of tomorrow. That is why we are producing a crop of inept leaders, inept political class that do not understand the issues and cannot proffer substantial solutions, lasting solutions to the myriads of problems we have in this country.
Well, we know that we'll certainly keep our tabs on that. I mean, these issues don't look like they're going away anytime soon. We wish they will. We sincerely hope and pray that they will, but we know that it's going to take more than prayers.
We need to work. We are very good at prayers, but prayers don't solve all the problems.
Exactly. We need to work as we also pray as well. We have to thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Edit this morning. Mr. Igho Akeregha is Abuja Bureau Chief of This Nigeria newspaper.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a break at this point, and we'll be back shortly to sink our teeth into the matters of the day. Please stay with us.